I'm Neil and welcome to Dreaming of Chess Mastery, a YouTube channel looking at all things to do with adult chess improvement, partly my own journey along that path, but also more general. And this week I'd like to take a step to one side to discuss a question that was raised by one of the members of Chess Dojo. Chess Dojo is a very good channel that focuses on learning in chess. Three principal members are Grandmaster Jesse Kraai and International Masters David Pruis and Kostya Kavunski. I've probably mispronounced that name, but such is life. Sorry, Kostya. And they were faced with the question in one of their sessions where they deal with these: can anybody become a grandmaster? It's a bit of a well-worn theme, and anyway, they gave it a crack. Kostya, the youngest, suggested yes. The other more grizzled veterans, an emphatic no. Before I go any further, let me just give you my position, because it's a wonderful question, but obviously in many respects ridiculous. The terms are never really defined. So at the beginning, the answer, a clear answer, would be no. Anybody, literally anybody, no. There must be on some level a sort of minimum intellectual component necessary to play chess and a minimum intellectual component necessary to become a chess grandmaster. Although I suspect that is very much lower than many people would like to think. You know, the same way that we talk about these entrance criteria. How intelligent do you need to be to get a university degree? Well, probably pretty much just average, sort of in the IQ terms, 100 or so. And some sort of research suggesting the intelligence levels necessary to become or obtain a doctorate. Maybe that's 110 or 115. For what it's worth, IQs being another thorny question that we're not going to go into right now. And it's been said that you don't need an IQ of much beyond 130 or 125 to win a Nobel Prize. So to become a chess grandmaster, there probably is some sort of entrance criteria in terms of intellectual capacity, but I suspect it's not that high. And let's say you're of average intelligence. Can anyone become a chess grandmaster? And those arguing no, and certainly Jesse and David were in this sort of camp, would cite the large numbers of people that try and become grandmasters and fail. And this is a poor argument. Simply put, first of all, what methods did they apply? I mean, they might have trained very hard, but was it the right training? And secondly, becoming a chess grandmaster is not some kind of abstract thing, a sort of benchmark that anyone could theoretically get, because whilst it's not a limited number of titles out there to be obtained, at the same time, it's a dog-eat-dog world. The people trying to become chess grandmasters are playing essentially in a finite and limited pool of tournaments to obtain the necessary grandmaster norms and rating points. So they're sort of feeding off each other, and in that sense, only a fixed kind of number of them will eventually become grandmasters, even if they all are of roughly similar ability. But I kind of thought about the question in different terms, because there is one at least very famous example of someone experimenting with this, and that's the Polgar family. And Laszlo Polgar raised his children with a viewpoint to proving that essentially nurture trumped nature in this regard. And he was very, very successful. The three sisters all became grandmasters and progressively stronger grandmasters. And so I kind of, if I was answering this question, I am answering this question. My point would be, just imagine the following thought experiment. Let's take someone of completely average intelligence and imagine that they had been adopted by Laszlo Polgar and, forgive me, I forget his wife's name, but had been adopted by the Polgars at a few months of age and then raised as a fourth Polgar sibling. Well, I think if you imagine those circumstances, the chances that that child became a Grand Master would be, very, very high. And I can't imagine that were my three sensei from the chess dojo discussing this with me, that the two dissenting voices, Jesse and David, would disagree with me. That assuming sufficient basic genetic material, I think that a child under those circumstances, that kind of hothousing technique, would stand a fantastic chance of becoming a grandmaster. And they wouldn't need to be particularly intellectually, genetically blessed, whatever that might mean, and that's open to all sorts of questions. And if that's the case, it sort of suggests that yes, within, broadly speaking, within reasonable boundaries of, a child that are fully functioning normal mind, given the kind of training that Sophia, Susan and Judith received, that child would probably have become a Grand Master, and consequently, yes, anybody could become a Grand Master, but they probably won't. And even if they're working very, very hard, are they actually committing themselves to the kind of path necessary to ensure that anybody might become a Grand Master? Now, of course, lots of people don't commit themselves to that path, do become Grand Masters, and they may well be exceptionally naturally of natural intellectual gifts. And those natural intellectual gifts may enable them to overcome their environmental and educational limitations. Another question that I would put to those arguing this topic, and I've been in this discussion in one form or another many times before with my fellow teachers, is, it's been raised the point that if you'd asked a member of the clergy or a nobleman in the 16th century, could anyone learn to read, they would have laughed. They said, no. The vast majority of people have not been blessed by God with the natural gifts necessary to accomplish something so incredibly difficult as reading. And I think of my struggles learning calculus based on my educational upbringing, and then I think of the children in my maths class that I would teach at St. Paul's, for example, the maths studies group, and they were people that were really the can't do, won't do maths group of children. And at the end, when they say we're not very good at maths, I'd say, but look, you can do differential calculus and you can solve simple optimization problems. You have been trained to solve problems where you can calculate, the maximum possible volume of a cuboidal box cut from a particular surface area sheet of card. This is not trivial mathematics. So that's my kind of take on this whole question. Jesse, who's the oldest of the trio, mentioned that it's become popular to say that anybody can achieve these things, and there's a socio-political element, and I don't want to explore where I think he might lie on this spectrum, but there is a socio-political element. People will argue that yes, anybody can accomplish these things because they want to suggest all manner of different arguments on the left and right of the spectrum. Children at the school where I taught would argue that anybody can become successful, financially successful, like we did, because my great-grandfather arrived as a penniless immigrant from Italy and, started with a little corner store and now we have a supermarket empire. And it seems to miss the point that within a small community, once again, only so many people can become successful via that route. There's not that much space for supermarket success stories. And equally, people will put forward this argument as an argument to suggest that society is holding back the downtrodden masses. And to that end, none of these prospective viewpoints tell the whole story. And this is probably not the channel, time, the place to go into that sort of discussion. It is the time and place to sort of tie in this polemical non-argument about can anyone become this, that or the next thing to my own particular quest. And the point is that when I look at the progress that I've made so far, which is limited, well, of course, it's limited because I have only just started on something and I'm not doing what I said I wanted to do. And I'm not beating myself up over it because I am just at the start of the process. I need to plough this path for much, much longer to develop the disciplines and to allow things to unfold as they will. And it doesn't really matter whether I become a chess master or not. The odds suggest I won't. I'm intrigued, first of all, how good can I become? I mean, there's no doubt that I will improve if I work hard. And the Chess Dojo makes that point very clear. Maybe you can't become a Grand Master or a National Master, but if you work very hard in the way that they, for example, suggest is appropriate and fruitful, you will improve. There's no doubt about that. And I'm intrigued. Can I improve? What form will that take? And whatever form it takes, it will be fantastic. So there we are. Not a very constructive episode this week. A bit of a rant. A bit of a pointless YouTube question. But well, that's what I felt like doing today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to comment, and otherwise, I trust you're enjoying your chess, your lives are filled with joy, and you're healthy. Until next week, ciao.